You got to look at big picture. What does this decision do to the entire organization instead of just this department?
Welcome, Bob. Thank you for being here. Really excited to visit with you today.
It's my pleasure to be here.
I know you've been in this industry a long time. Can you tell me a little bit more about your background?
I sure can. I've just been so fortunate, Kari, to have really been full circle around this electric cooperative utility industry, including broadband. Got out of Clemson University in 1985, electrical engineering. Went to work for a consultant that traditionally started with the cooperatives and did cooperative work in Orangeburg, South Carolina. Worked there for 2 years and then got called to my first cooperative, Tri-County Electric Cooperative in St. Matthews, my hometown, and spent 5 years there as engineering manager. Got solicited to take a sales job, so I spent about 2 years in distribution sales, selling power line equipment, poles, transformers, all the equipment to build power lines. After about 2 years, got called back to a cooperative position at Mid-Carolina Electric Cooperative. Their line superintendent retired, so he called me up. Next thing you know, I go to work for Mid-Carolina Electric and stayed there about 9 years. Got another call from the same guy that I was in distribution sales. He started his own agency with a rep manufacturer. So went to work in partnership with him, stayed there 3.5 years, and the job came open at Tri-County as CEO. Got called back to Tri-County as CEO. Stayed there about almost 10 years, and then Mid-Carolina called again, so that's where I'm at now. So I've been in the engineering side, the distribution sales, distribution from manufacturer's rep, engineering, operations, and now CEO. And in 2016, we actually formed an internet cooperative, Carolina Connect Internet Cooperative. So for the last 8 years, I've been in the internet side of this business. So I've just been, God smiled on me, and I've been all around this industry, and I've just been so fortunate. It's been a great career thus far.
So what's really interesting about your background is you spent time working at a cooperative as well as other types of organizations. And I know for me personally, prior to coming to NISC, I did not work at a cooperative. I worked at a law firm, which is a very different type of business. And, I noticed immediately there's something different about a cooperative. So did you always want to work for a cooperative? Did you know what cooperatives were?
Not really. I grew up in a small town that had an investor-owned utility, so I didn't know a whole lot about the cooperative. We knew that Tri-County was on the edge of town. They had their electric fair annual meeting, and we knew about that. But uniquely, when I got in distribution sales and from manufacturer's reps, my customers were municipals and investor-owned utilities. So I kind of got to see the inside of all of it. But to me, the cooperative model is, without question, the best way to go. And same thing on the internet side, since we created Carolina Connect in that same model.
What are some of the things that stand out to you as being different between the types of organizations?
The biggest thing, Kari, is just our integration with the communities that we serve. And every community is different. Even on our system, we serve in portions of 5 counties, and the communities are different. So the cooperatives, through our employees and our engagement, the things we do with the Rotary Club and the chambers, we just get to know our members, and then we tailor programs to make sure that we're providing not just electricity, but just community backing and community support for our community. So that's the beautiful thing. We don't have stockholders to answer to or have to make sure we get a return on investment for them. We do that for our members in the communities that we live and play and serve.
I know you do some work with youth mentoring in the community. Can you tell me about that?
It's a 501c3 called Real Champions, and our aim and mission is to end generational poverty. So we actually hire professional mentors. Each advocate has 8 kids, and we start in kindergarten. And what these kids need is they don't have a chance unless they have some stability in their life from an adult standpoint. We've found when they have a stable adult that they can trust, and it's going to be with them day in and day out through the ups and downs, and it makes a tremendous difference. So we try to prepare these young folks to get an education, finish their job, get them ready for trade, go into the military, or even go into college. But that's the essence of it. We go early and stay longer. So it's been a beautiful program. We do it in two counties in South Carolina right now, and we're looking to expand to a 3rd county as we speak. So.
Is that something that your employees are also involved in?
That one is not. That's a personal. But our employees, we have a couple schools that we adopted, and we do mentoring during the school year. We go in and do reading programs and math programs, and they have activities where they play ball and those type things. So anyhow, it's, again, have an adult that they can have a relationship with, and I think it's very, very important.
I think from an employee standpoint, having support from your organization, from your cooperative to do those sorts of things is pretty amazing, and it lends itself to greater job satisfaction.
Right. About 5 years ago, we started digging deep and said, how can we serve our members better? So we went through a couple programs. We went through NRECA's the Road to Member Engagement. Where we landed was, how can we support each other? If we can support each other, then we can support our membership. So it kind of got turned inside out. So through that, we formed several teams, and one of those teams is a community engagement team. So I got 5 or 6 employees that all they do is think about community engagement. What kind of parades can we be in? What kind of needs the school, those type of things. So one of them, again, was a community engagement. Another team was a member engagement. What do our members need from us? How can we better serve our members? Another one of those teams was a benefits teams. And our employee benefits is one of the strongest things we have for employee retention. They've changed some vacation times. We've actually changed work schedules. We started closing on Friday afternoons. That's huge for our employees to be able to go home at 11:30 on Friday and have the long weekend. Every organization's got culture. If you want to have a positive impact culture, you got to really be mindful of where your organization is and what can you do from your leadership team to take that culture in a positive way, because it's just never stagnant. Your culture is either moving forward or it's backing up. If you purposefully try to move your culture forward, you'll be successful. But you got to get buy-in from everybody.
You mentioned your leadership, and we are a servant leadership organization. And, I think having that involvement from your leadership team creates that additional buy-in.
It has to go all the way from the board of directors. The things that we talk about is upholding each other. That's one of our values. Another one of our values is concern for our members. Another one of our values is share everywhere. Another one is take a broader view, because an employee can get stuck on what they're doing and not know their impact on accounting and operations and engineering. So when they do anything, they need to take a broader view of how it impacts the entire organization. So all those cultural things that we've been working on is really, I think Mid-Carolina has as good a culture as any organization in the world, to be honest with you.
So when you think about concern for community, and you think about, there's the local community, there's your community of employees, there's, the communities they live in. There's also a broader community. And I know you recently testified at Congress, and on the topic of stable grid. And what I thought was so interesting about that is you weren't there because it helped Bob. You weren't there because it helped even your co-op. You were there because it was bigger than that. And I thought that was really impactful.
Well, I appreciate that. It was a heck of an experience to testify before Congress. The most intimidating part is prior to going, you have to submit your testimony in writing. So as they're grilling you from the stage, it's like, okay, I'm going to answer this question, but I got to think about how did I answer it on paper, because they're trying to trick you up. The other side's trying to trick you up. But the things I talked about, in South Carolina, we had a crisis on Christmas Eve in 22, where we had rolling blackouts across the state, all investor-owned utilities, Santee Cooperative rolling blackouts. The only reason the cooperatives didn't, because a major industry dropped some load, which allowed us to get over the hump. But the first place I went was the Department of Commerce in South Carolina, because we have so much economic development going on. South Carolina is also one of the top growing states in the union anyway. And I said, listen, if you don't get some more generation and transmission capacity, then our economic development is going to come to a screeching halt. I said, where do we go next? So we met with the Speaker of the House and their staff and told them the truth about what was going on. There's been a lot of conversations, a lot of hard conversations in the Southeast. But that was pretty cool to testify in front of Congress, and that's an experience I won't soon forget. Again, it didn't impact just Mid-Carolina. It was the entire Southeast.
Yeah.
The entire Southeast, and most of the country, but the entire Southeast needs more natural gas capacity, need more natural gas generating to really match up and pair up with the solar and other forms of renewables that have to be backed with the spinning generator.
Talk a little bit about hiring, and what do you look for to make sure that you're sustaining that culture that you've built? You
win some, you lose some. Sometimes you miss, but we have missed a lot less lately than we have in the past. And again, it's because of our culture. We set it in place, and when we go through the interview process, we talk about culture and somebody's values and those type things, try to understand what they're made of before we hire. Another thing we did, we changed our process, especially in operations. When we hire a new lineman, we actually go out and we got a field set up and we make the guys use post hole diggers and use a shovel. We make them use a drill, a manual drill. We make them climb a pole to see if they're afraid of heights. And we do all those things preemptively to try to figure out who's cut out for it and who's not. And then member service the same way. We put them in situations talk about phone calls and about dealing with people in certain ways. So I think we're a whole lot smarter about hiring people. The worst thing you can do is hire somebody that really is not cut out to perform that job. And it's bad for them and it's bad for us. So we try to be proactive. But another thing that we do is when day one, when an employee walks into the door, we have business cards. We have a packet. It's got all of our cultural information in it. We make them feel like they're a part of the family on day one. Hey, you got a business card. It says Bob Pauling, Mid-Carolina Electric Cooperative. Even a lineman, they'll look at it. Why don't you need it? Hey, you may need them. Somebody in the field may ask a question. And what we instruct those folks to do is say, hey, don't ever tell me anything. Call the office. No, here's my business card. I will get you in touch with somebody. If you don't hear from somebody, get in contact with me. So we try to do those things and make it more of a proactive approach of hiring folks. So they understand what their expectations are on day one.
I love that you give them business cards immediately. You know, I think when we welcome new employees, they get a welcome basket that has, you know, the NISC logo on a lot of things. And they also get a shirt with the logo, and basically you're part of the family now and you're one of us. And so I like that, the inclusivity of, you know, I'm now part of this community. I'm part of this organization. And so you've been with your organization, you've been the CEO for how many years?
Going on 12.
And so what are some of the things that, you know, you think about when it comes to your own succession plan in terms of, you know, preparing that next person so that...
I feel as CEO, it's my responsibility to prepare the cooperative for if something happens to me. But I also feel that next level down, if something happens to my senior staff, we need to be prepared. The way you do that is, first of all, you got to sit down and you got to look at who in the organization has the skill set and the talent and the values and the personality to step into that next leadership role. And then you start developing them. And it gets tricky sometimes because you may have 2 or 3 that are peers that all are pointing in that direction. So you got to be mindful of that too and not create anything that would drive wedges between them. So you got to treat that as fair as possible. So me personally, my board knows if something happens to me, my board knows who to tap in the interim until they make a permanent decision. And I've got that same relationship with each of my staff members. And that's between me and my staff member and the other folks who don't know, which I think is very important. At Mid-Carolina, we have another thing internally, and when I deal with my staff, it's called red, white, and blue information. Red information is just between me and staff. It doesn't get out of the room. White information goes to the first level of supervisors, staff and supervisors, and then blue information goes to everybody. So with red information, I have a relationship with my staff on who's next. Also, my board chair knows them in case something happens. So you got to prepare. You know, Mid-Carolina's a $150 million a year business. It's 155 employees. It's 60,000 members. And if something happens, it got to keep going. It's got to keep going.
Yeah, as long as I've been at NISC, we've used the phrase grow our own, with the idea that we have a lot of people with potential who are interested in leadership, and we don't probably need to go outside the organization. Sometimes we do. Sometimes you have those situations, but the idea being you're providing a career path for somebody, but also I think you not just maintain the institutional knowledge, but you keep the culture.
Right.
And you know, because you may have a very talented employee who's not right for the culture. That doesn't mean they're not a great person and that they aren't a great fit for another culture, but you've got to find people that will continue to sustain your culture. And I think it's a lot easier to find those people, or they're a known quantity versus going externally. So we do focus a fair amount on succession planning. And
exactly, Kari. You understand somebody's skill set, and then from that, you know that they're capable of doing the job. Then you got to figure out if they fit. When I first got to Mid-Carolina, it was that if you were in the seat longest, you would go to the next seat. But we changed that narrative. And I remember the first advancement over a supervisor, everybody's like, oh my God. But then in 6 months, they were like, that was the right choice. And now everybody trusts that we're making the right choices when we advance someone to the next level of supervision. So you got to look at big picture, and you got to, again, what does this decision do to the entire organization instead of just this department?
And I have to say, I've been very grateful to our board of directors, including you, for asking the questions of our CEO, what his plan is to make sure that we're preparing NISC, because eventually that happens. It's going to happen. And I think that our board has taken a very strong interest in that and making sure, well, I think our board takes a strong interest in our employees generally, which I appreciate. But I think in terms of making sure that we have the right leadership in place and, what fits NISC culture and is somebody waiting or is someone ready who can step into that without having a lot of disruption. In the last 2 selections that our board has made have been internal, right? And, 2 people who have spent their careers committed to NISC members. And that's probably the number one factor for me. If if I was to say what's the NISC culture in one word, it would be service. And those 2 could not be more committed to service. And so I'm very, very grateful to our board for taking that interest.
Well, I think the unique perspective that the NISC board has is we're all CEOs. We all run our businesses back home. I know that the proudest moment for me is when one of my homegrown gets moved up through the organization. I'm essentially a homegrown Mid-Carolina employee since I was there the whole decade of the 90s, and I knew all the employees and the board members. So I think I'm kind of a homegrown product myself. It makes you feel good.
Recently at a meeting, we had all of the vice presidents introduce themselves to their board because we have, some newer faces. And it was interesting, listening to each person say, well, I've been here 20, 25 years. I've worked in this area. And we have a lot of what we call lattice opportunity in the organization where you might work functionally in one area or with one product and then move to another area or work on a different product. And, it's not exactly a ladder where you move up the chain. It's not hierarchically like a progression in that way. It's more of I'm going to learn more. I'm going to expand my knowledge, my relationships, my influence, my scope, and through that, become a stronger leader for the organization. So I thought that was a really neat moment to, just from my standpoint, to hear that, because those are people that, again, have made the commitment to be with the organization and serve our members.
Well, I think it's kind of expanding on that, Kari. I think it has been a tremendous advantage for me to, again, been all the way around this business, being in engineering, being in operations, and being in, in the sales on both sides. But again, the more you know about the organization, I think the more effective leader you can be. So that's why it's a good idea to cross-train when you can. And a lot of co-ops have a very, very small head count, so they wear many hats. So it's easy to cross-train. But a larger co-op, we got 157 employees today, and it's hard to continuously cross-train. So you got to try to do your best to involve, again, show your work to fellow employees. What are you doing? So the right thing. And in that perspective, COVID kind of was a bad thing, but then it was kind of a good thing. Tell you a little story about how we communicated internally at Mid-Carolina. When COVID hit, we were ready to shut the offices down like everybody was doing. I think it was March 16th of that 2020. So on Sunday afternoon, several of us met and made the decision. So we said, okay, let's let everybody know that when I open and stay home, let's, we'll feel this thing out and do what we do. So tried to reach out to all our employees and went back to dispatch. We have a 24-hour dispatch. Said, hey, we need to let everybody know. And the dispatcher kind of looked at me cross-eyed. He said, how are we going to do that? I said, just text everybody. He said, we don't have capability to do a group text of 145 people. So we got in touch with everybody, but we said, we got to have a way to communicate real time, these critical things and other things that go in the co-op. So we found this program, it's an application called Jostle. And everybody has a Jostle app on their phone. And we put out all of our communication. It's our intranet. And you gotta be an employee to have access to it. But every week I do a video, what's going on at the co-op. Just like this past week, I said, okay, we got safety meetings on Wednesday, safety meeting on Thursday. Here's what's going on. We had a board meeting. Here's some of the highlights from the board meeting. I mean, all those things. And a lot of information had to be transferred to our employees. And everybody gets the information at the same time. You don't have to worry about a supervisor taking it to their employees. So I've done a video every week, except I think I missed 1 week. And there's close to 300 videos I've done since we started the program. I enjoy doing it. And my employees enjoy getting real-time information from me. So I think that real-time information, when all your employees can get the same information at the same time, also sets a level playing field. Because information it can be a weapon. If you withhold information from someone, it can create a lot of chaos and hard feelings, that kind of stuff. So
the last few years have been sort of disruptive in the labor market, and it's, we've had to put additional emphasis on employee retention. Of course, that's something we care about all the time. Usually we're more focused on satisfaction, but, with what was going on, retention became kind of the emphasis. And what's that like for you in your business? I mean, we have different businesses, but I think it's kind of hit everybody.
Retention is the key. For example, it takes 7 years to train a lineman. It takes 4 to 5 years to really train a member service rep where they can really do their job. So you're investing in your employees. So as you invest in them, you have to make sure you communicate with them and you're fulfilling their needs. What do you need? What do you need in your training? What do you need personally? What do you need from benefits? We formed through our cultural process, an employee benefits team. And they looked at and are still looking at what can they do for retention. For example, we changed our vacation accrual. You used to have to wait 20 years before you got 4 weeks of vacation or something like that. I can't remember what the numbers were. So they talked to most all the employees, got feedback. Here's where we need to land. So the board allowed us to change our vacation accrual. So everybody's really satisfied with that. We compare our linemen with the competitor, the competition. So we got to make sure we're comparable, but we can't be comparable in pay, but we're going to be comparable in our overall package. So you got to communicate what's it really worth to be there. And then the other part of it, Kari, we found that we need to make sure our employees are part of the conversation and part of the decision-making process. If your employees feel like they're really engaged in the decision-making process, it makes a big deal. But again, if we lose a lineman or any other position that we spent the members' money training, then that's bad for the members. They've wasted their money. So we're focused from a board perspective and a senior leadership perspective on employee retention. And we talk about it all the time. But again, you need to understand why people are leaving your organization. So if it's something going awry, you need to fix it.
And I feel like more and more we're seeing people go, okay, there's the financial aspects of the package, but things like flexibility become part of the package. Or, you said you have, Friday afternoons you're
right,
closed.
we change our work hours.
And I feel like culture is part of that package. Stability is part of that package. So you were in sales for 2 years. If you were to pitch it, why would you come to work at Mid-Carolina versus another potential employer?
Kari, if you come to work for me at Mid-Carolina, you're going to be part of our family. We're going to put our arms around you. You could be part of the fold. We're going to listen. We're not going to say, oh, that's old Kari, she's complaining again. We're going to legitimately listen. And if we can fix it and make it better for you, it's probably going to make it better for the other employees. So that's the family atmosphere is what sells Mid-Carolina. And when somebody gets part of the family, I mean, we have them for life, and it's been a beautiful thing.
Sold. Yeah, that's neat. So one of the things we have at NISC is our benevolence committee, and it's kind of this notion of we want to take care of each other. Right. And I think, it's its own community. We want to be involved in our communities as well. But do you have examples like that where your employees, I'm sure there's situations where someone passes the hat or,
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so proud of what we do from that perspective. We don't have an official program, but on rainy days, our linemen cook, and then they charge $7, $8, $10, and they throw it all in a hat. And when something happens, like we unfortunately lost a lineman at Black River Electric Cooperative from just an unusual contact. It's been about 18 months ago. I mean, we had some fundraising dinners. We passed a hat. I mean, we raised several $1,000s. Our board matched to several $1,000s for the family, and it's always things like that. Electric Cooperative of South Carolina have a program called Cooperative Cares Foundation. It's a 501c3. And when something happens to a cooperative employee or family member in the state, our statewide association normally reaches out and says, hey, would you mind helping this family? And then we raise money on a personal level. We raise money from a corporate level to give to it. At Mid-Carolina, we do 2 great fundraisers each year. One is a clay shoot where we have sporting clays. All the proceeds go to the Joseph F. Steele Burn Center at Augusta Hospital, and that's where they handle all burns. But any electrical contact in the Georgia and South Carolina region goes to Joseph F. Steele. So we've raised, $250,000 over the last 10 or 12 years to give the money there. We also have a golf tournament, and all the proceeds go to Lexington Hospital. They have a foundation, and they have an organization called Becky's Place, and they give prosthesis to women going through cancer. So internally, we do those things. Then we're involved in, oh my goodness, I don't know how many. We got an organization that they do human trafficking, and which is, kind of down here that nobody wants to talk about. But we raise a lot of money for them, that organization. We got organization called Oliver Gospel Mission that takes care of the homeless in downtown Columbia. We've got half a dozen or a dozen organizations that we internally do fundraisers, and we just get involved. And the team, the community involvement team, just looks for opportunities. And when our employees do that, it makes them feel like they're part of the community. And again, that's part of our Mid Carolina family, and that helps retention as well.
Yeah, and it's something they're doing together,
That's right.
which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much, Bob. This has been such a great conversation, getting to hear more about Mid Carolina and all the great work that you're doing in your communities.
I'm telling you, I've been on the NISC board for, I guess, going on 6 years now, and it is an incredible organization that does great work. And back home, it makes our lives so much easier in what we do as far as processing, billing, and accounting, and all the things that y'all bring to the table. And the beautiful thing about that is y'all listen. When we bring things up and we need changes made, y'all listen. Y'all don't push back. Sometimes the answer is no for now, but eventually we'll get to it. But NISC is an incredible organization I'm proud to be a part of.
One of the really great things about our organization being owned by our members, and just through this conversation, I'm learning so much. And I love this idea that we learn from each other, we learn from our members. There's some things here that I think I need to take back.
Well, we better learn from each other. If we don't, we get left behind.